What's up, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thanks so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hang out with me. I really appreciate it. In today's video, I'm going to be addressing something I've actually never talked about today. We're going to be talking about proxies in EDH. And this video actually came up kind of a while ago. We've been like obviously social distancing for way too long now. It's like insane. But one day my friend, our friend Travis had stopped over. He had dropped some food off. We were very safe. I promise we've been extremely safe. He was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask. We were like 6 feet apart. And basically, we were talking about like proxies in EDH, and this kind of had inspired this. So kind of the way that I want to start this video is I want us to talk about like 4 scenarios that I've kind of come up with about why people are running proxies. There's probably more, to be honest. These are just the 4 that I came up that I thought encompassed a lot. The first scenario is the classic, I've got cards in the mail. This happens to everyone. Perfectly acceptable. I think that this, like, again, I think if people are going to be salty about, like, well, you know, oh, also, I'm so sorry. I should have really prefaced this by saying I'm talking about Commander here. I'm not talking about your tournament that you're playing. I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm a Commander. We talk about Commander on this channel. I'm really talking about Commander here. So anyways, cards in the mail. Classic. I've said this multiple times. It happens. I've had issues where sometimes mail's gotten lost, where it's taken like longer than expected. I was like, hey, I thought I was going to have all the cards for this deck, and then they're not here or whatever. Like, it happens. Cards in the mail, perfectly acceptable. It happens all the time. If people are going to be like, get their panties in a twist about cards in the mail, like, I don't even know what your problem is. Like, that's ridiculous. Okay. This is kind of where, that is kind of the I would say, no-brainer. The rest of these is kind of where the water gets a little bit murky. So, and again, people are going to have opinions about this stuff. It's totally good. I'm kind of here to play devil's advocate and talk about a couple of different angles. Okay. The second scenario is a card that you have in one deck that you don't want to transfer to another deck. And I'm sure there's so many people who are watching this video like, yep, I do the same thing. So, for example, my friend Trav, this is really where the conversation really sparked. And he said, for example, the card Smothering Tide. Card's only been printed, I believe, 1 time as of now. There's the one version and then there's a previous version. I'm pretty sure that's it. And he's like, how many Smothering Tides do I have to buy? He's like, the card's like $10, you know, whatever. And this is where, again, I'm going to talk about multiple scenarios. Myself personally, I don't do this. If I don't have a card, if like, I'm gonna take like Cyclonic Rift, for example. I don't have Cyclonic Rift in all my decks. I think I probably only need like 1 more Cyclonic Rift, and then I have one in everything. But basically, I don't personally do this, and I don't really know if I can give you a reason as to why. I just don't personally feel comfortable with it. However, if I'm in a playgroup with my friends, like my friend Travis, I know he owns multiple Smothering Tides. I'm like, okay, dude, like, you're fine. You know what I mean? It's also, too, and I think this is one thing that, I mean, maybe this just, like, person to person, like, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but it might be a, like, when you don't know someone, and they come into your Commander group and they're like, oh, I have this in another deck, you just really don't have any idea. But if, like, when I play Commander, I mean, haven't played Commander in forever because quarantine, but when I've played Commander in the past tense here, it's always been like a, hey, I have this in another deck sort of thing. And I think I did this, like, 1 time a while back about, like, doubling season because that card's, like, $50. With that being said, I myself am just I don't personally feel comfortable with it. However, if other people are going to do it, it's none of my business, whatever. I think as long as you're being ethical about it and as long as you're being honest, like, you do actually have the card, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I get the whole notion of you don't want to have to change out your fetch lands or whatever because those things are expensive. And to be honest, I think this question brings up a bigger thing of accessibility in Magic, which I've done videos about that. And to be honest, I could do probably a whole separate video about the lack of accessibility in Magic about certain cards, but that's not the point of this video. Okay. The third scenario is testing a card or testing out a deck and you're not sure if you want to commit to it. I think this is perfectly reasonable. I totally get this, especially if a card is higher cost. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I don't want to commit to this card yet. I really need to test this card out yet. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially with higher cards where it's a lot to drop. Like, and I think, you know, one thing too that I like to do on my channel is I like to talk about the EDH cards worth the money. And those are really fun videos for me because I get the chance to talk about cards that are expensive and be like, I think this card is worth the money. However, I don't mention every card in this video. Maybe someone who's watching this video hasn't seen those cards, and it's like, you might not know, is this card, you might not know, is this card worth it? And that's reasonable. Like, that's okay to do. So I don't personally have anything wrong with it. And then I think this kind of lends itself into the fourth scenario, which is cards that you proxy that you never have intentions of buying. And I think this is where I would say people feel very differently about things, where a lot of people have very differing opinions about this. So just to be like really pointed in like how I feel about this subject matter, I personally would never proxy a card that I have zero intentions of buying. I personally just don't feel really comfortable with that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening who feel very similarly. And to be honest with you, I think it's a little, I don't really know what the word is, but I guess just like silly to do that because you don't have the intentions of purchasing it. And to be honest with you, I think the other three scenarios are really valid, and it makes a lot of sense about why you would do all of those things and why you would proxy those things. So proxying a card that like a dual land where you're like, I'm never gonna spend $300 on a dual land, like, they make your deck better, and I think that's the point where, again, I don't really agree with it. I think if I were to, like, sit down with someone, again, and I also, too, like, feel like I should know, because everyone's play group is different, everyone, like, does things in a very different way, but the people I play Commander with, it's very rare for me to just sit down, again, not now, but before, it's very rare for me to sit down with someone who I don't know and play a game of Commander. I'm not really gonna do something like that, and so I think, again, and I'm sure there's people who, like, you know, do that and all that kind of stuff, but for me, it's like, I don't really sit down with someone and they're like, hey, I'm just gonna, like, have this whole deck proxied and I don't intend to purchase any of it. Like, that doesn't really happen, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's, again, right? I mean, like, that's such a right or wrong, like, you know what I mean? I don't know if we're gonna, like, talk about this in terms of that, but I guess just, like, be kind, and I think, like, if you're gonna proxy, like, for example, the most expensive card on my wish list is I really want to get a Gaia's Cradle. I'm never going to proxy a Gaia's Cradle. The only time you'll see me with a Gaia's Cradle is if I ever own a Gaia's Cradle. I wouldn't ever do that. I just don't think it's, again, right? Like, I just don't think I should be doing that. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So, general kind of like thoughts, like taking a step back in this. So the lighting changed, or it shouldn't have changed, but it changed for me because I think the battery is going away. So I gotta wrap this up real fast. So mention your intentions to your opponents. If you're sitting down and you have proxies, talk to them about it. I'm almost done. Mention your intentions. That's hilarious. Come on. Mention your intentions to your opponents. Say, listen, cards are in the mail. Say, hey, I have this card in this other deck. Would you like to see it? Whatever. Say, I'm testing the card out. Tell your opponents what's going on so they're in the clear. And I think also, too, and again, this is kind of another point that I touched on a little bit earlier, is money should not deter people from the game. Ultimately, I am all about accessibility in Magic, so when things happen in the game where people buy out something intentionally to cause the price to go up. Sorry, y'all, if the lighting changed. I really need to finish this video, but my lighting changed a little bit. Hopefully it's not that bothersome, but money ultimately should never deter people from the game. I don't think it's morally right if someone is not able to get certain cards because one card is just astronomically expensive. But to be honest, that's a little bit more of a conversation for another video, so that's not really the topic for this one. But anyways, I'd really like to know what you guys have to say about this topic. I thought it was really interesting to get the chance to kind of talk about, again, these different scenarios. It was kind of helpful for me to talk about them in that sort of light. I think it just made a lot of sense to me. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll catch y'all in my next one.